This video is about major and minor intervals. So minor intervals are a half step smaller than major intervals, and we can see that when we look over here. So a major second is 1 step, a minor second is a half step. A major third is 2 steps, a minor third is 1.5 steps. A major sixth is 4.5 steps, a minor sixth is 4 steps. A major seventh, 5.5 steps, a minor seventh, 5 steps. So what does that look like when we see it on the staff up here or on the piano keyboard over here? So let's look at our first example. On our first example, we have an E and an F. So if I mark those on here on the piano keyboard, E and F, and you can see that going from E to F, we are not skipping over any keys. So that is only a half step. So we're going to say that that interval is a minor second, or lowercase m, 2. Okay? Also, when we look at it on the staff, counting the lines and spaces, 1, 2, tells us it's a second, and because it's only a half step, that makes it a minor second. Okay, let's look at the next example. The next example is F to G. So I'm going to put an F, a dot on the F, and a dot on the G. And that shows us that we are skipping this key, this F sharp G flat key. So that is going to be a whole step. When we look up here on the staff, we see if we start counting the lines and spaces from the bottom note to the top note, that space is 1 because that's where the bottom note is. That line is 2. So it is a second. Because it's a whole step, that's going to make it a major second, or uppercase M2. Our next example, well, let me erase those dots. Our next example goes from a G to a B. So if we count the lines and spaces, 1, 2, 3, we know it's a third. You know what? I skipped that one. We'll come back to that. We know it's a third. So if I mark the keys down here, G and B, we can see that from G to A is 1 whole step because we're skipping that key. From A to B is a second whole step because we're skipping that key. So 2 whole steps makes it a major third. So capital M3. Okay, let's go back to this one that we skipped. So it says D sharp to F sharp. So I'm going to mark those here, D sharp, F sharp. So let me count the lines and spaces. So that space is 1, the line is 2, that space is 3. So this is a third also. Now, how many steps is it? So from E flat, or D sharp rather, we're going to go up a whole step. So that means we skip the white key E and land on F. And from F to F sharp is only a half step. So that's 1 whole step and a half step. So 1.5 steps is a minor third, or lowercase m3. Okay, let me erase that. We'll go on to our next example. Our next example goes from E up to C. So let's count the lines and spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we know it's some kind of a sixth. So if I mark the notes E and C on the keyboard, let's count the steps. So from E, to get a whole step, we skip to the F sharp. From F sharp to G sharp is a whole step. From G sharp to A sharp is a whole step. From A sharp to C is another whole step. So 1, 2, 3, 4 whole steps. So 4 steps is a minor sixth. So lowercase m6. Okay, our next example. So we're just going to start by counting the lines and spaces. So that space is 1, line 2, space 3, line line 4, space 5, line 6. So we know that also is some type of a sixth. So the notes are F and D. So here's F, here's D. So let's look at the steps. A whole step to here is 1. A whole step to here is 2. A whole step to here is 3. And those are whole steps because we're skipping those blank keys in between. So to go a whole step from here, we go up to there, that's 4, so we're skipping this key that time. And then from here to there is only a half step, so 4.5. So 4.5 steps over here tells us major sixth, so capital M. Okay. Let's look at our next example. Our next example goes from D to C. So here's D, here's C. Now let's count the lines and spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's some kind of a seventh. So from D to C, let's count the steps. So a whole step because we skipped that, a whole step because we skipped that, a whole step because we skipped that. So that's 1, 2, 3 so far. A whole step because we skipped that, and a whole step because we skipped that. So it's 5 steps. 5 steps we see over here is a minor seventh, so lowercase m. Okay. And our final example. So let's start by counting the lines and spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's some kind of seventh. And the notes are C and B. Now, if we count the steps, here we go. That's 1 because we skipped that. That's 2 because we skipped that. That's 3 because we skipped that. That's 4 because we skipped that. That's 5 because we skipped that. And that's a half. So 5.5 steps we see over here is a major seventh. So capital M, 7. So that's how your major and minor intervals will work. I hope that you found this video helpful.